Today we're going to be painting some tokens in landscape to make a board game look better. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing well. We're going to be starting off with some chests. Yes, we're going to be painting all the landscape stuff from Massive Darkness 2. We're starting off with the tiny chest, primed in just a white primer. We're going to be starting off with some dark wood from Army Painter's Speed Paint. We're going to be doing some speed paint, some contrast paints, some game inks, all sorts of cool stuff. And these tokens are from the Kickstarter exclusive, and they are upgrades for the tokens. They're going to make the game look amazing. Wildwood from Citadel. This is a contrast paint. Now you can see that Wildwood and Darkwood are pretty much identical. Now you can see I've painted all the other ones. Like what it is, I chose 3 colors. I chose a speed paint, a contrast paint, and a game ink from Vallejo. And now I took brown. I thought it was going to be darker than this, but no, it's very light. So technically this would almost compare to the snakebite leather and the hardened leather. But it's kind of cool having a chest that's a bit different than the rest. So there's going to be 5 that are painting of each color. Of course, 10 are going to pretty much look identical. Now we're going to be doing all the nice trims with some Screaming Bell. This is a Citadel base color. It's like a bronzy color. We're going to be putting this all over the trims, on the sides, front and back. A lot of places this takes a long time because you're batch painting 15 of these chests. So you have to be patient. I did them between other videos or other miniature painting just to not go crazy painting the same thing over and over. Here's an even more fun thing to do is you want to paint all those little bolts or all those nails with some lead belcher. You can even use some Army Painter. I decided to use Citadel stuff on these ones, and on the next chest I'm going to use Army Painter stuff. So you can use, or you can use any kind of silver if you want anyways. Like you can use it from Vallejo, you can use it from anything you want. But doing every single little dot like this was very time consuming, very monotonous. So again, I did a couple of these, did something else, came back to these. I mean, when you got 15 to do, it gets a little long, and it's also a little hard on the hands as well to be able to just nail them right on the nails. Well, that's a very funny pun. Now I'm doing the inside because now whenever you have the chest tokens in the original game, they're going to have color on them, either blue or green, and they're going to represent either a common or a rare item that you're going to pick up in the game. So I'm just putting some metallics in there, so some elven armor, now some glitter green, just to show what you get when you pick up these tokens. There you go, the chests are painted. Now we're going to move on to the special chests. So these are some really nice chests. We're starting off with priming them in Wraith Bone by Citadel Primer. So I did a different thing because I'm going to be using though Gorgrunta Fur, which is a Citadel Contrast. Now contrast paints work amazing on their own primers. The white primer that I was using is not Army Painter's white primer because I ran out, and you can tell that it's not the same for miniatures, so I bought some. I decided to do that. Greedy Gold, Army Painter Metallics. We're going to be doing this on like the straps, like whatever's holding down this chest cover. There's some on the sides as well. The locks in the front. Pretty much doing the same thing as the little chest, but making this one pop a little bit more because they are the special chests. And you want them to be a little different on the table as well. Now I could have broken up these videos into little tiny videos in each one, but I just want to make this one big video, so feel free to skip through to the parts you want to see. Links are in the description. You can click on where you want to go watch. We're going to use some gunmetal now. This is an Army Painter Metallics. It's a little dark silver. We're going to do every little I guess nail again on these ones as well, but thank God there's a lot less to do, so these just went really fast. I did them all in one shot, and you can see they fit perfectly on top of Green Stuff World's color shift metallics. Like I couldn't find nothing because they have a hole underneath, right? I couldn't find anything to hold them. So these ones are going to have the blue metallic, the elven armor, and they're going to have a blue metallic underneath because they have the epic treasures. There's only one epic treasure. It has 3 treasures you can pick up, so this is purple. Again, so they're not primed underneath though, so it's like they're not great, but it's just to show the color so that when you pick them up. Alright, the special chests are done. Let's move along now to some Anvils. And we're going to be speed painting through these, folks. These are going to be awesome. But again, so this time actually they're primed in a silver primer. No, not Army Painter's plate mail or gunmetal. Didn't have that either. I have to order some of those. So we're starting off with some hardened leather. This is the first speed paint we're going to be using. And this is just for the handle of that hammer. Plain and simple. Then we're going to use some holy white. Now again, this holy white, I mean on a flat surface, just does it gray, which is perfect. It ends up giving a nice little light gray to that hammer. And then we're going to use grim black on the entire anvil. It's going to get really nicely covered. It's going to keep that shine from the silver going through. So it really makes it look like a used anvil. Now, for some reason, though, it wasn't adhering very well to the paint. I'm guessing because, again, it's not an army painter paint. They do recommend matte white, and then you paint silver on top of that, but using their paints. But I mean, you got to test it, right? This is how you find out what works. And super simple like that, the anvils are all painted. Now, there's 4 of those in the game. Let's move on to the columns. Oh, look at those columns. I'm so proud of these columns. I love how they turned out. They are primed with Citadel's Wraithbone. And because I'm going to be using some contrast paints, and we're starting off with a Apothecary white. So this is just like the holy white. As you can see, it gives like a sort of like a very light gray. And now what's cool is I'm really just brushing this on super fast. And when it dries, it gives this beautiful marble look with the primer in the back, the Wraithbone, with the gray that's coming through. Super nice. Skeleton Horde is the next contrast we're using. Of course, we're using this on all the skulls on the bottom of these columns. Again, contrast paints work amazing with their own primers. I didn't use Grace here primer on any of these miniatures or these landscape pieces or tokens, just because I want to use just the Wraithbone. Space Wolves Gray is next for the top parts of the column and the bottom. So these little gargoyles are getting painted up in this. I mean, it does look very blue, but once it dries, especially with that Wraithbone, it gives it a nice antique look to it, and I find it was perfect for a dark dungeon. Really great paints to work with. If you're still watching by this point, I hope you're enjoying the video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It's really appreciated. As well as you can also donate to me on Patreon, Ko-fi. Those links are in the description. If you enjoy my work, these things cost a lot of money, so you got to help me out here, folks. Anyways, all the help is appreciated. Alright, those columns are done. Look at those. Those are beautiful. They're beautiful columns. Alright, we're moving on to the bridges now. There's only 2. This is going to be super fun and fast, and we're going to be using some Game Master paints from Army Painter. So first, we prime them in matte black from the Army Painter. This is going to make this super easy. You take a huge brush, you put some Dungeon Base, which is like a very dark gray, and you're going to slather this pretty much everywhere. You're not going to be super careful with it. You're going to get everything you can, but try to get into those recesses. Now we're going to do the same thing, but with the dungeon highlights, which is a lighter gray. And we're going to put this again all over, but a different dry brush. And that's a little bit softer. And I'm sorry I went off camera a bit there, and I went really off camera with the dungeon effects, which is almost white, but has a gray hint to it. And you just go and get the edges, and there you go. Bridges are done. They're going to be super fast to do. If you want, you could put a wash on there and stuff like that. Now we're moving on to the spike traps. Yes, sir, spike traps. And these, again, are primed in Wraithbone by Citadel Primer. And they're sitting on the upside down part of the green stuffed world paint bottles. We're starting off with some Basilicanum Gray. This is going to be for all the rock sections or the dirt sections or whatever you want to call it. You pretty much have like free reign on this. You can just go where you think it looks like a rock and stuff and just go ahead and paint that on that area. Next, we're actually using some Guilliman Flesh, another contrast paint, and on the skull part, the bone part. So instead of using Skeleton Horde or anything like that, I wanted this to have like an almost older look to the bones. I find that the skeleton bone makes it look like they've been, or maybe even, I don't know which one looks more old, the Skeleton Horde or these ones. Anyways, I just wanted it a bit different. It almost looks fleshy as well. Looks different. It just makes it look different than all the other bone stuff I've done. A little Warplock Bronze. This is a Citadel base paint. It's a metallic paint, of course. We're going to be doing that on all the spikes. Now, the spikes, are they stone? Are they wood? Are they metallic? I didn't really know. They could have been stone, which could have been done in a different color maybe. But, I mean, just having a little shine to them makes them a little bit nicer. I did not put any blood on them because, you know, all those skeletons have been there for a while, so I'm sure there's no more blood on them now. Anyways, there you go, the spike traps. See, simple, folks. Really fun to do, and you can make a board game look amazing. The bear traps. Yes, these look like big cookies with teeth on them. No, we're using some white primer again, and the first color we're going to be using is a contrast paint. This is going to be Fire Slayer Flesh. Oh, yeah, look, I'm using flesh again for a ground. The reason I'm using this is just because I made it look like earth. I found this is very earthy color. I could use Agaros Dunes. I could have used Nazdrag Yellow, but Nazdrag Yellow would have been way too orange. Now we're using some Black Templar on the whole rest of the trap part. This is cool because it really goes on really well on this white. Surprisingly enough, this one went on really well on this white, but I did have to add a little bit of matte white from Army Painter because I missed some spots, so maybe that made a difference too of it clinging to this paint. Because for some reason this other matte or this other white primer I have, some of the speed paints and contrast paints just don't adhere to it and they leak a lot. You might see that happening, or I'll explain that a little later on the next miniatures that we're going to be painting. And the final touch we're going to be doing is actually going to be some dry brushing. Yes sir. We're going to take a little bit a Necron compound and we're just going to go around those big jagged teeth of this bear trap, as well as the actual like bolt or whatever holding this together. And what's cool is they also come with stickers that you're going to put underneath that replace like the tokens, so you know exactly what happens when you touch these tokens. Moving on, I think I love the portals. These are so fun to paint. So they're primed in white, and this is where the speed paints, you need that Army Painter matte white. So we're starting off with a Hive Dweller purple. This one went on pretty well, but when I stood it up to dry, it started running all down to the bottom, and it looked like it was sticking in its area. It didn't look like it was running at all, but as I was doing the plasmatic bolt, and this was the worst one, it all started leaking to the bottom, and I had this huge pool of this paint. So well, I don't know why, it might be the paint. So now I'm using a gloss varnish once it really dried to go over, just to give it a nice shine, like a portal mirror shine to it. And the plasmatic bolt actually started coming off a bit on one of them. I don't think it was on this one, but on one of them I had to go really gentle, otherwise it started rubbing off. I think there even some maybe on that paintbrush there. Alright, now we're using Palette Bone. This is another Army Painter speed paint. I don't think I've used this one actually yet. And I'm using this on all those wicked bones holding up this portal. Now this is a bit longer here because there's a lot of them and you want to get all those nice nooks and crannies. And I'm going to actually do a different color on the green portals. Why? I don't know. I just decided to have different looking skulls, just like I did with the spike traps. Tell me which one you like more. I think I favor more this Palette Bone one because it is lighter. But here we go. We're going to move on now to some Sand Golem. So this is very, very comparable to Nazdrag Yellow. I didn't think it was this orange. The bottle is very misleading. I thought it was like just a darker version of the Palette Bone. I hadn't tried this one yet. So as you can see, it's very like dark orange. I had to stick my finger inside the hole for the miniature just to be able to hold it properly to get a good painting job on it, because they weren't staying on top of the bottles anymore. I don't know why. They were fine before. And to finish them off, we're going to put some Night Scales. This is an Army Painter metallic color. It's almost bluish purple, dark. Kind of, I mean, it blends in with the purple one, but on the plasmatic bolt one, it looks really nice. So there's some little areas that you got to get all around the edges, and then you got to be very careful when you're doing around the side of it as well, to make sure that you get all that leftover white. There you go, folks. The portals are done. They look amazing, don't they? All right, we're moving on to the final piece of the miniatures, and these are the fountains. Probably my favorite miniatures, or not miniatures, but 3D tokens. They're primed in white primer. Again, the speed paint had a bit of a hard time on one of them. I'll show you later. We're starting off with some magic blue. Now I've used this before, and this is gonna be for all the water in that top part coming down the front of the statue into the pool of water below. And I'm gonna do something a little magical with this after to really give it that watery look. Alright, the next part of the statue is going to be the base, which is going to use some Gravelord Gray. So this is very similar to Basilicanum Gray. This is going to go all over that base part. It's going to get into those little cracks on there, giving a nice darker base to it to really make that blue pop. And then we're going to finish off, well, not finish off, but we're going to do the final part of this fountain with some Runic Gray. Now, I have used this before, and as you see, I'm just glabbing this on because it is not adhering too much to the white primer. So you can see it's really pooling up instead and just giving like a, what would you call that? Like a tint to the white. I don't know again if it's because it's just regular matte white or just regular white primer. I don't even know if it's matte white. I'm not even sure. because it's not the iron painter. Because the iron painter is like less sticky. This one is kind of sticky even if it dries for a long time. So maybe that's why. But anyways, it was pooling up a bit. And it was drabbing down after a while. Alright, this is where I do the magical touch on that water. I'm using some water gel, transparent. It's an AK Interactive Diorama Series texture paint. And yes, it looks like white glue. It might actually just be white glue. I'm not sure. But you stick this on there, and yes, it looks white now, but when it dries, look at that. It gives a glistening effect to the water. I don't know if you can see it too well there. Anyways, guys, there you go. That's all the 3D landscape tokens. I want to thank you guys for watching, and we're going to catch you all in the next one.